What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp, managing editor, FightfulMMA.com. Go over there to get all of your MMA news, live coverage, and discussion every single show. We have a lot of people over there in our live coverage talking about the event. So make sure you all come over and enjoy it with some of the best. We have one of the best on the show with us, one Showdown Joe, or as he is professionally known, Joe A. Ferraro.
Yes, Joe A. Ferraro. That's the professional name. Showdown Joe, I guess, for the MMA world. But thank you for the nice, kind compliment there. Not sure I agree, but all right.
Well, you know what? To hell with you then. We got UFC Greenville to talk about, Bellator London, at least a little bit. Bellator 222, that was a notable card, and lots of news to get into. But as we get into things, did you get caught up in any of the parade yesterday?
I didn't have a chance to go because I was actually at my mechanics. I just couldn't get the timing right. But I was listening to it on the radio, and then I take my son for a haircut. We were in there for about an hour, and that's when I guess they just made it onto the stage. And then at home, one of the stations here, Sportsnet, was just showing a 1 hour loop of it over and over again. So we didn't miss anything. It was absolutely unreal. There's a picture on my stories right now on my Instagram that shows the depth of the amount of people that were actually there. And that doesn't include Nathan Phillips Square, where the end of the parade was, where they ended up on stage. It's if you guys get a chance, just check out Joey Ferraro on Instagram. It is, the amount of people was ridiculous. It was insane.
Well, Bellator 222 is this weekend. I have a full post-show podcast up on that, and there was a lot of news that emerged from this show, Joe. Just a ton of stuff. Let's start with the prelims. Aaron Pico was dominating Adam Borks with wrestling, got caught with a flying knee. You have Heather Hardy, who was just obliterated.
Yeah.
These are two different fighters. Aaron Pico, about, 16, 17 years younger than Heather Hardy, a lot more potential. Heather Hardy, I just want to see her box. If she wants to keep fighting, more power to her, especially if they're on prelim shows in New York. I mean, that would be smart to put her on the prelims in New York because she sells tickets. Aaron Pico, this is a guy who just keeps facing really good fighters, and sometimes he is not better than those fighters, Joe. What do you think about his future?
Your tweet, I think, was just before the fight started or was during the fight, nailed it on the head that he's not fighting a scrub. They're matching him up against other fighters that are either similar records or similar skill sets, and he's just not able to figure some of these guys out. So because of his age, I don't mind him continuing. I like your assessment of Heather Hardy, but it's when a guy loses like that. He lost his debut. You start thinking to yourself, what do you do with him? Well, just let him fight, let him continue. I mean, you never know. Other guys that had crazier. Look at Anthony Smith. I mean, he had a crazy career, and he ended up fighting for the world title, right? And he might fight for the world title again. You never know. So there's plenty of time for Aaron Pico. It sucks that he lost, but it's MMA. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, Aaron Pico beat Leandro Higo, who I think is a pretty good fighter, all things considered. So I don't think he's a lost cause or anything. I just think he's got a lot to learn. Kyoji Horiguchi is not in that same situation. He is now Bellator bantamweight champion. You got to believe Scott Coker's thrilled. He's like, yeah, Horiguchi. I want to see Horiguchi fight Cejudo. I want to see Horiguchi fight Mighty Mouse. I want to see Horiguchi fight all the best because Horiguchi is one of the best. And this fight over Darian Caldwell really showed that. Caldwell controlled things early, but Horiguchi, even though he was undersized, a pretty good-sized flyweight against a really big bantamweight, and Horiguchi won this fight and did so in impressive fashion. Horiguchi is special, Joe. Special. And I mean, you get to call his fights with regularity.
Yeah, he doesn't go away. He will not go away. Even in that fight with Mighty Mouse, it took to the very last second for Mighty Mouse to finish him off. So, Kyoji will not go away. Yeah, he was dominated early on in the fight. Caldwell was doing a fantastic job controlling him, but eventually the gas tank sort of went down to empty. And Horiguchi's gas tank never goes to empty. He just keeps going and going and going and going, and eventually has the ability to turn around a fight. And the fact he was able to do that, you give him 25 minutes against anyone, he's going to look good. He even looked good in the Demetrius Johnson fight in that last round. So it is what it is. But two promotion champ. I mean, the guy is fantastic. If you didn't get a chance to watch this fight, try and get on YouTube and watch some of his rising fights. The guy is just absolutely ridiculous when he competes, and he deserves this, right? And in terms of Scott Coker, not being overly impressed or just thinking to myself, what just happened here? There's a lot of cross promotion between the two organizations. So we'll see what happens with that. But Horiguchi now is getting paid twice, right? He's got to defend the Rising title. He's got to defend the Bellator title. They're all championship title fights, which continue to raise his stock value. So I'm happy for him.
For Caldwell, he's lost twice to Horiguchi. That's not a situation you want to be in, because you can't justify a third fight unless he wins like 7 or 8 in a row, something like that, and forces somebody's hand. If I were him, I wouldn't hesitate to bump up to featherweight and maybe even try to get in that Bellator featherweight tournament that's going to launch.
Yeah, why not? You're right. I don't think he's going to get another shot against Horiguchi unless it's a last-minute thing or step in at the last moment. But I think you're absolutely – you drinking a beer?
Actually, no, it's green tea. It's green tea. You don't drink beer.
My bad. I forgot it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean is as clean as they come. I know we're going to get to TJ Dillashaw, so there'll be some sort of segue there from Sean, but Sean is very, very clean. Caldwell, I mean, you're right. You lost twice against Horiguchi. You're not getting that title shot anytime soon unless it's absolutely craziness last minute. Try your hand at 145. Why not?
I think for Horiguchi, he's probably got Sean Bunch or Patrick Mix up next. Patrick Mix, who immediately came into Bellator and hit a great standing rear naked choke. You have it was amazing. Yeah, it was very good. You have Juan Archuleta at featherweight. He's probably punched his ticket to that tournament. I think Archuleta deserves to be on the featherweight championship side of that bracket.
You're right.
I'm ready for that at this point. He should not be left out of that. He looked great. He jobbed out Eduardo Dantes. I said before this that I think that anybody with that type of championship experience stands a chance. Archuleta made sure he didn't stand a chance. Good-looking stuff out of Patrick Mix and Juan Archuleta on this show, Joe.
Yeah, Patrick Mix, though, when he jumped on the back, I was like, holy, okay. And he just kept, the technique just kept looking prettier and prettier and prettier until that choke got locked in, and that thing was on tight. So good for him. And as for Archuleta, we've seen crazy things in MMA, but when he landed that one punch where Dudu was kind of moving back and trying to adjust his mouthpiece, you're just kind of like, oh, this is not going to end well. Didn't end well. I mean, it was just a thunderous punch 1 second ago, and we tried that Triple H thing with drinking the drink and then spitting it up in the air at the end there. So good on him.
Dylan Danis beat Max Humphrey. Is there anything we're talking about here? Dylan Danis beat a jobber. Looked good doing it.
Yeah, you can't go to the ground with him. But, listen, his takedown was nice. He was able to cross the feet, right? It's one of the things that you try and do whenever you're doing a double leg takedown is if you can get your opponent that's standing like this to eventually cross their feet and then push in there so their feet come together, you're taking them down. So very impressive takedown by Dylan. And, of course, the submission is, really surprised.
Good ground and pound, too, but he couldn't get it done that way. But you could tell that he wanted to get it done that way.
Yeah.
Lyoto Machida defeated Chael Sonnen. Sonnen didn't look bad in the opening seconds. He closed the distance on Machida as well as anybody, not just lately, that we've seen ever close the distance on Machida, which is kind of impressive. Sonnen would eventually get kneed and kicked and just couldn't continue. The same happened in the opening seconds of round 2. Sonnen, that was a wrap. Machida looked very good, but the thing is, Joe, he had to have a willing, aggressive dance partner to look good. Otherwise, Machida is going to sit back. I did not agree with Big John McCarthy's assessment of this fight. He said, "You were the elusive karate fighter," and I'm like, no. Sonnen ran right at him. There was nothing elusive. It happens every time somebody does this to him, outside of maybe Derek Brunson, but. Now you've got Machida, before we talk about Sonnen, who is riding a 4-fight winning streak, returned to light heavyweight. Does he jump Vadim Nemkov in the light heavyweight title discussion? Because Bader hasn't defended his title since 2017, and Machida has that 2012 embarrassing knockout win over Bader. That's a lot easier for them to sell than Vadim Nemkov and Ryan Bader, Joe.
If you are Ryan Bader, what decision do you make?
Machida, without a doubt, over any heavyweight, over anybody. Unless Bobby Lashley's walking through that door, current WWE superstar, to fight you at heavyweight, then you go to Lyoto Machida. You go for the biggest name if you're Ryan Bader, mid-30s.
Yeah, yes, 100%. You got to go with your money fight. What is your money fight right now? It's Lyoto Machida. And you have the opportunity to avenge a loss that you may thought that I'm never going to ever be able to avenge this loss. When the guys lose, I would figure 8, maybe 9 times out of 10, or girls, they want to avenge that loss. And now you've got that opportunity. You can defend the title, you can avenge that loss, and get paid, all doing it at the same time. So if I'm Ryan Bader, yeah, Lyoto Machida is a fight that I'm picking.
After the fight, Chael Sonnen hung up his gloves, left his gloves in the cage, rather. He is 42 years old, a newly 42, just turned 42 a couple months ago, and said that he had planned on calling out Bader if he won. And a lot of people would have thought that was ridiculous, but had he won this fight, he would have won 3 of his last 4, with that one loss being to Fedor Emelianenko. So in Bellator, sure. He said that he had a 5-fight deal with Scott Coker. He was a man of his word and wanted to honor it, but wasn't going to retire if he won. But he seems very okay with retiring. Now, there were a couple of points brought up. You could tell he was emotional talking to Ariel Helwani. He had promised his dad that he would be a champion before he retired. Now, I'm not Chael. I can't put myself in those shoes. In my mind, he was WEC middleweight champion.
Yeah.
And deserved to be. And am I wrong, Joe? Based on the way that they construct things now, that fight modern day, if Chael made weight and Filo didn't make weight, Chael still would have been eligible for that title, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, he deserved that championship, and he deserved to be the last WEC champion. And I hate that was taken away from him. And, you know, we can get into a lot of things about Chael Sonnen and his career. He was, I think, the first MMA interview on Fightful. That was something that you had arranged, and he was very generous with his time, helped me out with a couple of features. I'll always remember that. But I want to know, Joe, how will you remember Chael Sonnen, both in the cage and out of the cage?
In the cage, he was fantastic. You know, I thought he was a fantastic fighter back in the day. I mean, obviously things slowed down for him as his career progressed, as age catches up with you. There will always be a seat at my kitchen table for Chael Sonnen. There will always be space in my backyard for him and his family to enjoy a barbecue or some swimming with the little guys. I cannot tell you what he did for my career as well. I know George did the most for me. We all know that. But Chael Sonnen did a lot for me when it came to stuff with the Americans. Whenever I had to go down there, and Chael was something else. I mean, the highlights that I have was one of the fights. The first highlight I have of when I think of Chael Sonnen was in one of the post-fight interviews when, you know, he was supposed to fight the winner of Anderson Silva and Vitor Belfort. He basically said, I want the easy fight. I want to fight the easy fight, and that's Anderson Silva. And that's when it all started. That's when it all started back in the day at that press conference in Vegas. I'll never forget that. The time him, myself, and Jim Ross worked the Battlegrounds 8-man, one-night welterweight tournament. That experience with Chael was unbelievable. We spent so much time together, along with Jim Ross, just doing our thing as a broadcast team. I'll never forget that experience, that full weekend. It was something to behold, Sean. It was incredible, especially with Jim Ross. Jim Ross he's just hilarious. The stories that he was telling us was incredible. And just one time, I don't know what fight it was, but he emerged victorious. He made a lot of money, and I overheard him talking vehicles with Dana White before I had a chance to speak with him. And before we actually spoke, he just came over to me, you know, said, you know, how are you, sir? This, and that. And I just said, you know, before I even start this interview, I just want to say thank you. Like, thank you for everything that you do. Whenever I call you, whenever I text you, whenever I need you to do an interview, whether we're in person, whether it's over the phone, whether it's via camera, via satellite, you're always available to me, right? And I just said, and he said, thank you. And I said, you get it. You absolutely get it. You know how to sell a fight. You know how to – this is way before the big things was happening with Chael. I said, you get it. You're on the right track. You know, this is unbelievable. And you could tell how humble he was. And he just said, thank you, Joe. I really, really appreciate it. You've been around the game for a long time. I'm glad that you're recognizing what I'm trying to do here. It was all off the record at the time, right? So I'll always have time for Chael Sonnen. And actually, Sean, as you know, I've said it before, I don't have much of an option. I do owe the guy a steak still. So eventually when we run into each other, I doubt he'll remind me because he'll try and pay again. But for those tuning in right now, I do owe Chael Sonnen a steak dinner because he surprised me when he paid for mine when I came down very first evening at the Battlegrounds. He'd already ordered it for me, told me how I'm supposed to eat it, like a man is supposed to eat it, not like a Canadian or something like that. So,
how is that?
Yeah.
How is that?
I think he likes his steak. I think it was well done, if I'm not mistaken. I like my steak medium. I like it medium, and not according to the man's man, Chael Sonnen. So I had to eat the steak the way he ordered it, and I gladly did. It was fantastic.
You know, I like my medium well. I don't mind mine well done as long as it's not burned.
Yeah. Maybe medium well is what he likes. I'm just trying to remember, but I like mine medium.
Yeah, I'm not on the rare boat, man. A lot of people seem to think that's some sort of badge of honor. Not me. Chael Sonnen obviously had a long storied history with failed drug tests, which he replied and said, "I wasn't one of the worst drug cheats. I was one of the best drug cheats."
Well, yeah,
it's easy to laugh about it now, but man, was it frustrating when it happened.
I remember the one time when he got pinched for the big stuff. It was a change of opponent, and he had basically said, "Well, I know that dude's jacked. I'm getting jacked. We get caught. We get caught." That was his theory. It was more. It wasn't. This is way before USADA, and it was one of those things where he basically convinced me. He's like, "That dude's cheating. That dude's juiced up. I'm not fighting a juiced up guy without getting juiced up." That was the premise of the conversation, and I was like, I spoke to some other UFC fighters about it, and not one of them said I disagree. Like, that dude's juiced, I'm getting juiced, and I was like, oh boy, this is gonna get ugly. And then they all got caught, and it didn't happen.
So it's not like we're done seeing Chael Sonnen. He's going to remain in the Bellator broadcast booth. He's going to do well at that. He said he's going to continue to defend his titles in submission grappling, and he has an amazing podcast presence. Just excellent. He is just such a conversationalist with that. I highly encourage you guys to check that out. But that wasn't even the main event of Bellator 222. The main event, Rory McDonald does what he needs to do to beat Neiman Gracie. And it seems in the period in which we wondered if so many of these aspects of his religion and his mental state would affect him. He said that he's found himself and fixed himself in that time period. Well, he's going to need to against Douglas Lima, because Douglas Lima wants that win back. This is how this fight should have went, with a 100% Rory McDonald. And I'm not surprised that it did, but there's nothing about this fight that makes me say, damn, I need to see Rory McDonald fight in the future.
I agree.
What about you, Joe?
I agree 100%. I mean, kudos to Gracie for lasting. He was getting punished there for a bit, but he kept going, even for that final leg lock attempt. He was trying, but Rory McDonald was just that much better. So, give kudos to Rory. He defended his title, but he's got a big problem ahead of him in that rematch with Douglas Lima. I'm going with Douglas Lima right off the top of my head here, because that guy there is some motivated, Sean. Some motivated. He wants to get Rory back in that cage as soon as possible. But I don't know what to think about Rory McDonald and the whole religion thing, and that he found himself and blah, blah, blah. Okay.
So that's Bellator 222. We've got some other news. Ben Askren believes he could jump over Colby Covington if he wins at UFC 239. I don't think so. I think that Covington versus Usman is the fight to make. It just feels like it's been so long since we've even talked about welterweights on this show, Joe. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah. Well, I think if Ben Askren wins, he's on standby. Right, he's definitely on standby. Right, so I do want to see the Colby fight with Kamaru Usman. I think it's just we always want. Nobody likes unfinished business, right? Let's just wrap it up. Let's see what we get here, and then take it from there. So I definitely want to see that fight with Colby and Kamaru before Ben Askren gets a crack at that title. But with a win, and he's not going to get an easy win. I mean, I shouldn't say that because you never know what can happen. But yeah, he's on standby. He deserves it. He's just, that beating that he took from Robbie Lawler. I mean, to this day, watching those punches that Robbie Lawler was landing on Ben Askren's mug, I thought he was going to kill him. Like, I thought he was going to die right there. And the dude took it, turned it around, got the controversial win. But yeah, man, he could take a punch. Let's just not kid ourselves for a second, right?
But yeah, it's been like since March since we've talked about really any high level welterweights. I mean, that's when Lawler versus Askren was. That's when Woodley versus Usman was. I think Teal last fought then, if I'm remembering right. Masvidal and Teal. Thompson and Pettis was back then. Outside of Rafael dos Anjos, we haven't really had anybody in that top 10 fight since then. I don't think Ponzinibbio did. Yeah, Ponzinibbio hasn't fought since last November. So this division has just been kind of quiet lately.
Very quiet, exactly, yeah. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen, though, yeah.
Anderson Silva's son scored a TKO win in his Muay Thai debut. Are you surprised?
No, not at all. I mean, it's got some big pair of gloves to live up to, right? He's got to live up into his dad's shadow. But I always remember what Damian Marley always said about being the son of Bob Marley. And people are like, your dad is this infamous, not infamous, but this world famous, how do you supersede that? He's like, it's not about, being bigger than my dad. I'm just imagine I'm on my dad's shoulders, and my dad's shoulders, he's carrying me around, right? So that's one way to look at it. So hopefully Anderson's son can understand that you don't have to be like your dad. It's something to strive for, that's for sure, because that guy there was the greatest of all time at one point. You could still make the argument, despite the rocky end of his career, or the latter years of his career. But yeah, good for him. Got his win, and keep it going.
Habib Nurmagomedov says that he's still holding out hope for a possible fight against George St. Pierre. What would you put the percentage of likelihood at?
30%.
I think it's fair. I think that's fair.
Is it going to happen? Probably not. Can it happen? Never say never.
Yeah, you'd have to wait for the 6 months before USADA does all the testing and all that stuff. Matt Mitrione versus Sergey Haritonov booked for a Bellator show. What is the percentage of likelihood that we will see another nut shot in this fight?
It's a good one. There's a prop, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go with... I'll go 85%.
Really?
It happens, man. Sometimes it just happens between fighters, right? And I think, you know what? I think it's more than likely going to be a nut shot.
Oh, wow. Okay. Last one on the percentage. What percentage of a chance are you giving Artem Lobov this weekend? Bare knuckle fighting against Paulie Malignaggi, who MMA fans seem to think was some kind of scrub in the boxing world. Let me let you guys know, he wasn't. He was very good.
5%.
Yeah, maybe 5. Maybe
it can happen. 5. One punch can change things, but I doubt it.
Artem Lobov was not a good MMA fighter, much less a boxer. And yeah.
Tough as nails. He's tough as nails, but I mean, again, I know people will still think it's controversial with the Floyd Mayweather and Tenshin Nasukawa fight. I can attest to this. Tenshin Nasukawa is a wizard. Don't kid yourself. The kid is something special. He's unbelievable. His speed, his power, his accuracy is I would say second to none until he fought Floyd Mayweather. And when I saw that, I was just like, Jesus, is there a level to this stuff? Because this kid just amazes me and Frank Trigg and everyone that tunes into Rising events, and how he just dismantles Sean, like just brutalizes people with absolute hatred and venom, and just, he's unbelievable. And as soon as that left hook was thrown to Floyd Mayweather's head, game over. Floyd turned it on. And if you're asking me who's a better striker between Artem Lobov and Tenshin Nasukawa, Nasukawa in a different stratosphere is much better. And Malignaggi is going to be, I think he's going to toy with Lobov. I think it happened, but Malignaggi was a good fighter, man. He was a stud back then, right? Not a crazy, world champion to say the least, where he went on these runs, but yeah, he was good.
A couple other headlines. Sergio Pettis forced to withdraw from his fight against Ricardo Ramos in Minneapolis. You also have Bruno Silva out of his fight against Deron Winn at UFC Greenville. Instead, Eric Spicely will step in and fight Deron Winn this weekend. That is an uphill battle for him. But we had one championship. Akiyama got beat. he had a judo throw early on, but that was really the only name that almost anybody out here is going to know. Are you surprised that Akiyama couldn't get it done?
Well, he hasn't won a fight. Well, he beat Amir Sadollah in 2014, but before that was 2009. That Alan Belcher fight, which was fantastic, that split decision fight. But other than that, I mean, the guy hadn't fought in 4 years, pretty much 4 years. I mean, really not much to. Yeah, it'd have been great, but I'd like to see him in Ryzen, right? They love those Japanese fighters retiring on their sword, and that they're very, very. They look back at their history and they've got to go out as warriors. I think it'd be great to see him some way, somehow score a deal with Ryzen. I don't know if they want him, but it'd be nice to see him there. But yeah, Sexyama. Yeah, he's always a great guy.
John Kavanaugh seems to think that Conor McGregor will be back this year. Do you think he will?
Yeah, it's June. We got plenty of time. We'll see what happens with this Malignaggi fight and Lobov fight, if that's going to entice Conor to do something, but not with Malignaggi, but just in general. Conor's a fighter. We can't forget that, right? We can't forget the fact that he's still a fighter. The itch is going to be there. There's going to come a time, if he wants it, where he's like, okay, I'm not getting any younger. I got to get 1 or 2 more fights in. Let's do one now. Could be the money thing. I want to get paid with the right deal. I'm going to focus on it. There's a lot of different things that can motivate Conor McGregor. So with it being June right now, I think we'll see one fight out of Conor, especially when Khabib and Poirier fight. Conor is going to be yipping and yapping, right? So yeah, we'll see.
McGregor has been drug tested 6 times since his last fight, but that Lobov and Malignaggi, it's a fight. If he's not going to be there, he's going to be watching very, very closely.
Yeah.
Or Malignaggi and Lobov, that he's going to be paying an awful lot of attention to that. Just big time stuff. Also, for McGregor, it's big time stuff, not for actual humans. TJ Dillashaw spoke to Chael Sonnen and really danced around a lot of the PED stuff. Do you think that's because Sonnen sympathizes with Dillashaw, and Dillashaw probably knew that and saw it as a safe place for him to go be interviewed? Because if it's Luke Thomas, if it's Ariel Helwani, if it's James Lynch, or if it's even one of us, like that ain't gonna happen. Like, you got to ask him that.
Yeah, I think it was a safe harbor for TJ. He did say, "Look, I cheated. I'm owning up to it. I get it." But he said it was having a hard time making 125. He walks around at 145. He said,
"Don't take the fight then."
Yeah, right. That's the dealie right there, right? But it's your risk, man. It's risk versus reward, unfortunately, in this game. And I think Chael also said it best. He goes, there's so many of your critics right now that are ripping you apart that I believe are on juice. I mean, that's not verbatim, but he's like, they're cheating as well. They're pointing fingers at you. They're just not getting caught. Right. And I'll never forget, Pearson just was all over me at one point saying, I would say most of these guys cheat, if not all of them. Right. It's just, I can't compete against them. I can't. I go in there knowing that I'm supposed to be way stronger than half these guys, and they don't look like they're strong. And as soon as they get a hold of me, it's like, whoa. Right. I mean, George back then was just completely and utterly adamant about the amount of cheaters in MMA. And, one of the reasons why he walked away after that Hendricks fight, he walked away before the Hendricks fight, to be honest with you. But they just couldn't take it anymore. They just could not take it anymore. And it's so prevalent in the sport. And again, whenever I talk to Luke Berardi, Sean, he's got the steroid eye. He can see it. And it's just whether it's a ripped body type or a specific body type, he still tells me all the time. He's like, yep, him, her, him, her. So, I mean, it's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. But, it's a risk, man. You want to do it, you're going to get caught. If you get caught, own up to it.
Jessica Andrade will defend her title for the first time in China against Weili Zhang. Now, this came as a big surprise to a lot of people, but Rose Namajunas was reached out to for this fight ahead of Weili accepting and them doing this. But hey, Zhang has beat Danielle Taylor, Jessica Aguilar, Tisha Torres. Obviously, the latter far more impressive than the former. I don't hate it. I don't hate it necessarily, but do I think that she should have gotten that title shot over Tatiana Suarez? No, I don't. I think that is a disgrace, to be quite honest with you. But I want to know what you think. It's China. They clearly want to make a big splash. I don't know what Tatiana Suarez's status is physically, but unless she's ready to go in 2.5 months, then I guess I kind of get it. UFC has to stack these cards, but what do you think about this? It's Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, it's a business decision, obviously, right? It's a business decision to say we're going into a market, China, and we need someone out there that people know so we can sell tickets at the venue. It may not do well on Fight Pass or I think it's ESPN 15, if I'm not mistaken, or ESPN Plus 15. I don't know what kind of numbers they're going to do for ESPN Plus, but it's more of a business decision than an MMA decision because Tatiana Suarez deserves that title shot, in my opinion. She is next in line. She deserves a crack at Jessica Andrade. Unfortunately, timing isn't right. And again, we don't know her full health status. She could be recovering from something. Well, I don't know what she can be. There was no injury after that fight other than her cardio dipping in that third round, right? It was just, we didn't hear anything. Was there anything that was announced?
Don't believe so.
Okay, so yeah, I think she deserves that title shot. But if you're putting Jessica against Tatiana in China, you ain't going to sell many tickets, right? You're going to sell a lot more with Zhang in there. So
yeah, of course. But I think that when you're booking that, I just think it's weird. I mean, Suarez beat Ansaroff, it was very clearly pegged to be a title eliminator, and just and I mean, here's the thing. I'm okay with a tune-up fight. I'm okay with Tatiana Suarez getting like somebody in the top 15 maybe, or just outside of it in the meantime. I'm all right with that.
would you put her on this card?
See, that's the thing. Do you send her all the way over to China and like maybe put her up against a Chinese fighter? Sure.
Yeah,
some jobber from China. Yeah.
Top-ranked fighter against a jobber. That I'm not sure I like, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, well, as a tune-up fight, just to place hold it in case one of those two misses weight, you can slide it into the main event. And if Wiley Zhang misses weight, then Suarez has a title fight. If Andrade misses weight, then you can either make it for an interim title or for a top contender spot. But yeah, those are the breaks, man. Dana White says that he has signed a 10-year deal with the UFC, this being after I think he said a 5 or a 7-year deal. Yeah, I think he had signed a 5-year deal when Fox re-upped, but then it got extended even more with the pay-per-view deal. Now he signed a 10-year deal. So Dana White will be around, I guess, through all the way up until 2030. What do you think of this? I mean, he's going to be 59, 60 by that point.
I don't think he makes the 10 years. As soon as the Fertitas buy an NFL team, he's gone.
Really?
He wants
you think
in.
So?
Yeah, he wants in with that NFL purchase, right? Or any sports franchise. If they can get something in the NFL or the NBA, they'll do it. They'll do it. They'll do it. I don't know why. See, I'm of the belief that if I had the opportunity to buy an NFL, sorry, let's look at me for a second. If I had the opportunity to buy an NHL team, an NBA team, and it wasn't Toronto, I'm not buying it. So if it's not the Patriots and it's not the Celtics, why do you want to buy the team if you're Dana White? Money, profit, yes, I get it. It's the same thing if I had an opportunity to buy a soccer team. If it's not a Toronto-based team or Juventus in Italy, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying my competitor who I don't care about, but I can see what these guys are looking at saying, I make a lot of money doing this and blah, blah. But then you've got to show your passion in your heart because you want that product, that entity to go crazy. From merchandise sales to ticket sales to broadcasting rights or whatever you want to maximize the money you can make with that brand. So I don't know, unless the Patriots, which I doubt are going to be for sale anytime by Kraft. The Celtics, I completely doubt are going to be for sale anytime soon. So I don't know what the real thing is. But Dana White making it to 2029 or 2030, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, hopefully you guys make it to this Saturday. We have 2 MMA shows, Bellator London on I think Saturday early, but it'll be aired in the evening because of the tape delay. I don't know. Well, let's go ahead and talk about this. Gegard Mousasi defending against Rafael Lovato Jr. Mousasi, a massive favorite, a minus 560. Lovato, a plus 370. And I agree. I don't know what Lovato has for Mousasi. What do you think, Joe?
I thought I'm actually saying there's value on Mousasi here. Right?
Because of the, yeah.
I thought this would be in the minus 900s, 1000s, right? Like it's just, I don't know. I mean, take nothing away from Lovato. The guy's a mixed martial artist. I get it, but Gegard Mousasi, this is not a matchup that I would look at on paper and say, Lovato can do this or that. I mean, now Mousasi has that habit, though, Sean, of just competing to his opponent's level, right? So he could make a dumb mistake in this fight and cost him the title. I doubt it, but he's had that ability where he fights to his competitor's level. So it is what it is, but Mousasi should walk away with this fight fairly substantially easily, let's just say.
We have Eric Silva plus 240 against Paul Daly minus 320. I'm on board with this. I think that's a good line. Now, this is a part of the Bellator 223 card. There's a prelim show, a Bellator 223 show, and a Bellator London show. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but whatever. Those are the betting lines. You also have James Gallagher, a minus 540 against the guy that he's facing, Joseph Labiano. Okay. Melvin Manhoof is in action. Aaron Chalmers is in action. Underrated fight on the prelims, though. Kate Jackson and Lena. Any of these fights stick out to you as something that you're particularly looking forward to?
Well, James Gallagher, whenever he competes, I'm always a fan. I like to see him compete and do well. I think the line is fair as well. I mean, he's only 20 points short of Mousasi's line. But, I mean, every time I look and think about Eric Silva, what happened? Like, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Like, did this guy take too many beatings during training that it affected him this much? Because this was a guy at one point, I think before Fightful even started, this was a guy at one point where him and Rory McDonald were considered the future of the division to one day supersede George St. Pierre as the upper echelon of 170 pounds in mixed martial arts. The way this guy's career completely went tumbling down and got deflated is beyond me. At any one point in time, if you ever said Paul Daly was going to be a minus 320 favorite over Eric Silva, I'd have laughed in your face. Today, I'm looking at that line thinking, yeah, Paul Daly's going to punch this guy out.
Yep. Charlie Ward also in action. So Bellator 223/London has some familiar names at the very least. But you have UFC Greenville this weekend, headlined by Moicano versus Korean Zombie. This is going to be a very violent show, but I'm going to take you through some of the betting odds. Deron Witt, a minus 300. Eric Spicely, a plus 220. It got Spicely back in the UFC, but not an easy task. You have Ariana Lipsky, minus 280. Molly McCann, a plus 240. Alan Crowder, a plus 185. J.R. Rosenstruck, a minus 225. Anderson Dos Santos, minus 120. Andre Ewell, a plus 100. You have Luis Pena, a minus 380. Matt Wyman, handsome Matt Wyman, still at it for the love of God. I forgot that he existed. But handsome Matt Wyman has been at it for 13 years now in the UFC. He is a plus 315. You have Dan Ige, a plus 125. Kevin Aguilar, a minus 145. Then we move into the women's fight. Ashley Yoder, minus 120. Shuri Kondo, who has a bit of a crossover connection there. She is a plus 120. Do any of these stick out to you?
Dan Ige's value, plus 125. I'll put 5 on that for sure. Luis Pena at minus 380 over Matt Wyman. I think that's fair. We're talking about a guy that's Matt Wyman's been competing forever, so he's going to have tons of MMA mileage.
I remember him from the finger wag and getting knocked out from it by Spencer Fisher.
Yeah, it was way back when. Wow.
How about this? A little under the radar, but Matt Wyman has won 3 of his last 4. He's won 6 of his last 8, but he has not competed in 4.5 years, Joe.
That's why that Pena line's at minus 380. It's almost like, give me the fight, get it over with. Now, I've said it a billion times. MMA is MMA. Anything can happen. But Luis Pena has been putting on a bit of a show recently. Not a fantastic show, but the kid comes to fight, right? He brings the pain, and I think he's going to be he's going to do well in this fight. I think he emerges victorious. Other than the Ige fight, I mean, Spicely, like you said, is it's not going to be a good fight for him, to be honest with you. But other than that, Ige for me is at plus 125. Take nothing away from Aguilar, but Ige's not getting love from anybody. The guy, he's a tough dude.
Matt Wyman's career is just so. I mean, some of the guys that he beat, like Isaac Valley Flag, who I remember was winning a couple fights outside of the UFC and then retired. Paul Sass, who won at Bellator in 2013 after he got cut and just hasn't fought since, and Michihiro Omagawa, who lost his way out and then fought a bunch in Japan, including for World Series of Fighting, like won 4 in a row, didn't fight anymore. Wild, man. Wild. It's weird to see his name there. It's so weird. You have Alessio Di Chirico, a plus 185, Kevin Holland, a minus 225. That kind of rounds out some of the unknowns, along with Randy Brown, a plus 230, Brian Barberina, a minus 270. We've learned in our time here at Fightful that Brian Barberino is always live, and he is finally being shown that respect by the bettors at a minus 270. But then we move up. Andrea Lee, minus 225, Montana De La Rosa, a plus 185. We didn't cover this, but some good news. And hey, I'm not going to pretend to know Andrea Lee's motivations, priorities, or concerns, but Donnie Aaron got locked up, and they caught him after 10 months. That can't hurt her mental state. That's for damn sure. Not having to wonder where a guy that allegedly abused her was. Anything stand out to you about the Barberina, Andrea Lee, or those subsequent fights?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, Barberina, he's got to be everyone. When it's so like, if you don't like the way this guy competes, you got to be a donkey. I mean, the guy is fantastic. He's there to ruin people's hype trains, right? That's what he does, and I think it's gonna be a good scrap for him. It's difficult because I'm sure he wants to be on a more well-known platform, a better card, but I think he'll be fine against Randy Brown. And of course, Andrea Lee, I think you nailed it on the head. The mindset may have changed throughout this training camp, not having to worry or look over your back or wonder what's happening. It's always going to be there for her. No ifs, ands, or buts. But maybe this is a training camp where she was able to just finally focus and say, all right, I can do this. I can do what I want. I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm really okay as opposed to before. And let me show my skills and my style against Montana De La Rosa, and I think we're going to see her shine this weekend.
I mentioned Shiri earlier on, Shiri Kondo. If she doesn't win this weekend, she's probably facing being cut. And the fight with Ashley Yoder, it's a plus 100, so it's not like completely out of the realm of possibility. If Shiri Kondo gets cut, mark my words, if she makes the move back over to pro wrestling, she will become a big star. She will be on the likes of like Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and she will have a style that a lot of people outside of WWE, if she does the fights in America, because I mean, hey, if she's fighting in Greenville, that means she can take some wrestling dates in the States as well. She will be a great pro wrestler. Already is a pretty good pro wrestler. Did a lot of stuff for CMLL, does a little bit of everything from submission wrestling to kickboxing to MMA to pro wrestling. Keep your eye on her, guys. Just do it. As we've seen, losing your way out of the UFC does not mean you can't make it as a pro wrestler. If anything, it gives you even a little bit more credibility just having that UFC experience. John Lineker, minus 210. Rob Font, a plus 175. Of course, this is going to be a good fight. You just know it. You just know it, Joe. Who do you got in this one?
Well, considering John had that split decision loss to Corey Sandhagen, I'm sure he's super ticked off about that decision. He wants to avenge that and keep himself relevant. And of course, you know, when you think about Rob Font, his last win over Sergio Pettis in December, like this is a high quality fight, right? And remember, Rob Font went the distance with Rafael Assunção. Okay, this guy's got skills. He beat Thomas Almeida, so this is going to be a barn burner of a fight. And I think it's going to be Rob Font's going to have to rely on his technique to do the very best he can to not get caught up with John Lineker's brawling style, because John Lineker, as we know, one punch, game over, right? So I think it's going to be a very technical fight, man. It's going to be interesting to see how Lineker's mindset, because Lineker can stay focused for 15 minutes and hunt you down. He can do it. Hunt and hunt and hunt and put pressure on you. But, you know, Rob's got to be very, very careful here. Very, very careful.
Lineker has not lost two fights in a row in like 10 years. That's what he'd be facing here. And it was very clearly that early on in his career, he was ill prepared. He was like 6-5. And since then has lost, I think he's, my gosh, I think he's like 25-4 or something. So no tall task to put him away back to back. He ran into Corey Sandhagen. That man, Corey Sandhagen, just really good. And he's been facing really good fighters for a long time. He's beaten Rob Font before. And you know that Rob Font wants that win back. You just know he does. We know that Rob Font can go all 3 rounds with him, and that was 3 years ago. So it's a matter of him getting that done again. Then we have Korean Zombie, a +170. Renato Moicano, a -200. I don't know how, outside of making this completely ugly and a Hail Mary, I don't know how Korean Zombie can win this one, Joe.
I got Korean Zombie winning this fight.
Do you?
My
God.
He went the distance pretty much with Yair Rodriguez, right? Like the last second spinning elbow KO. 1 second left in the fight. And Yair Rodriguez is a bad, bad man with some explosive striking. Moicano getting destroyed by Jose Aldo Jr. Where's his head at, right? I think it's a fantastic fight. I could see why Moicano's a favorite. I get it. That's where the bookies originally put that line. I know how much it's moved from there, but something's telling me Zombie pulls this off, man. I think the Korean Zombie pulls this off. And I don't care if I'm wrong. I just think he's going to pull it off. I don't care if I'm wrong.
I'm sure it's going to be a good fight because it's Korean Zombie, man.
Yeah, man.
It's Korean Zombie. That's UFC Greenville. Of course, we have all of your news updates over at FightfulMMA.com, guys. Make sure you guys tune in. But if you're watching now on YouTube, leave a thumbs up. We're still growing our MMA channel. Subscribe to it. I post fight review videos. You all probably see those up there a lot. I post news updates, ranking updates. Carlos does the boxing podcast and boxing interviews, media calls, all that good stuff. Harry Kettle has interviews up as well. Just lots of stuff over at FightfulMMA.com. Joe Holbert does a great job over there as well.
Carlos Toro is absolutely fantastic. I mean,
Carlos he's one of the best boxing guys, period. He's so under the radar right now, but he's
I do want to say, I think everyone, if you're watching a UFC event, make sure you've got Sean on notifications, because some of the stuff he tweets, a lot of it's professional. It's professional, but there's times when something happens in a fight, or there's times that a decision happens, or something in general where Sean's going to lose his shit. And when he loses his SHIT, it comes out on Twitter, and it's fantastic because I could be, if I'm not watching live or if I happen to be driving home or whatever like that, I've got him on notifications just for that for sure. And I see some of the stuff, I'm like, oh no, what happened? Because Sean is losing his marbles. So I highly recommend put Sean Ross Sapp on notifications because the guy's a mess when a UFC fight's on. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, fortunately for me, wrestling is where my bread is buttered, so I don't have to worry about burning bridges in MMA, although I did just finally get on UFC's press list. So.
Right.
And we did have Harry Kettle at a UFC press conference in London. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it, man. Miraculous. So, hey, you never know. But, hey, guys, help us out. Help us get the ball beyond get the ball rolling. Help us get our name out there in the MMA world. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, follow me at Sean Ross Sapp. Follow Joe at Joe A. Ferraro. Mark it down. We're out.